We've got breaking news. The Golden State Warriors have unfortunately lost Stephen Curry due to an injury. How long is he out for, and what does this mean for their round 2 series with the Minnesota Timberwolves? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. A lot going on in a busy playoffs and summer in the NBA and off season. It's going to be packed with trades and transactions, so make sure you do subscribe. So let's get into it. Shams Charania announces that Steph Curry has sustained a grade 1 left hamstring strain and will be ruled out for game 2 against Minnesota on Thursday. Sources tell ESPN it's the first strained muscle of Curry's career. So an exact return timeline has not been revealed. Something where when we look at Steph Curry, we look at the injury itself. You could see Steph in the game last night against the Wolves. He reaches back, grabs that hamstring. This is obviously not he's on the ground rolling in pain like a grade 3 tear or anything like that. It's bothering him. We can even watch here in just a moment. He's going to take a shot, and you see he doesn't want to land on that leg. He tries to push off here. He goes, he shoots, he holds that leg out, that left leg, and does not land on it. So not good for Steph Curry, not good for the Golden State Warriors. Now, the Warriors did go on to actually win that game last night. They got the win, even though Steph Curry was out, and the way they were able to do that was with the offensive glass. They did a great job there. They had 18 offensive rebounds, and meanwhile, the Minnesota Timberwolves also shot 17% from three, just 5 of 29, 39.5% shooting overall. And in fact, the Minnesota Timberwolves, we look at last night, 12 of 76 over the last 2 games, the Minnesota Timberwolves are from behind the three-point line, including game 5 against the Lakers. 12 of 76. It is the worst three-point shooting percentage in the history of the NBA playoffs for a team that was 4th in three-point percentage and 5th in three-pointers made. This is a big part of their offense comes from shooting the three, and the Wolves simply couldn't do it. So we look at, well, how did the Warriors survive against the Wolves without Steph Curry? The Wolves couldn't hit a shot, and you would have to assume that regression is going to kick in at some point, and they're going to shoot better than 16% from three, which is what they've done over the last 2 games. So what do the Warriors do in order to hang in there without Steph Curry? And then how long is Steph Curry actually going to be out? Well, let's actually take a look at that first. Let's look at how long he is really out for. Now, if we look at the National Institute of Health, they've got the recovery timeline for returning to sport on a grade 1 hamstring strain, 6.9 days. So we're talking a week. Now, it's a week, but also there is a just under 10% chance of the injury reoccurring. Now, it's a higher percentage chance of the injury reoccurring, 24% on a grade 2 strain. So thank goodness right now, this is just a grade 1. That maybe is the best news the Warriors could hope for. It's a grade 1 hamstring injury and not a grade 2. Grade 2 would not only cost him almost 2 weeks, but it would also mean that there would be a much higher chance that he gets back out on the court and then just gets hurt again. But still, 10% chance essentially that Steph Curry returns from the injury and then gets hurt again. That's not ideal either. That's not nothing. 10% chance that he steps back on the floor and the injury reoccurs. Now, obviously, hopefully that doesn't happen. We always want to see good players out there, active, healthy, everybody out there active and healthy on the floor. But that's just the reality of the situation. There is a chance that the injury does reoccur. Now, when we look at this series here with the Minnesota Timberwolves, the challenge for the Warriors is all the way through game 5, they play every other day. There's no significant break until we get between game 5 and game 6. So if the average recovery timeline for this injury is a week, here we are May 7th, a week would mean May 14th. That's game 5. But there are 3 days off after game 5. So I do think the way this series is going will ultimately determine when Steph Curry returns. Let's say the Warriors are up 3-1 after game 4. Maybe they are. Maybe they're up 3-1 after game 4. In that case, if Curry is maybe close to a return, maybe you don't bring him back for game 5, and instead you give him another 3 days and you bring him back for game 6 if you need to close out the series. Now, is that likely? I would say no. I would say without Steph Curry, it's going to be a big blow to the Warriors. I know they beat the Wolves last night without Steph Curry, but again, it took absurd shooting from the Wolves in order to get there, as well as some phenomenal work by the Warriors on the offensive glass. If the Wolves mitigate some of those offensive rebounds, if Draymond Green doesn't have a hot shooting night from 3, if the Wolves could actually hit a shot, I could see where the Warriors would be, a bit worried now. There is some evidence to the contrary, though. I'm going to get into that in just a minute, why the Warriors may actually still win this series, even without Steph Curry. But if they do have an opportunity to wait until game 6 to bring him back, that would buy the Warriors and Steph an extra 3 days to recover. But let's say the Wolves win game 2. And maybe you win game 3 with no Steph Curry. Next thing you know, the Warriors are down. Then is there more pressure to try to bring him back for, maybe you rush him back for game 4? What about, do you definitely play him game 5? Like, it all depends on how the series is going, I think, to their willingness to accept risk with Steph Curry. If they feel like they're on the verge of being eliminated, like what if the Wolves win games 2, 3, and 4 with no Steph Curry, suddenly there's a lot of pressure on Steph to come back for game 5 rather than get that extra 3 days off. But again, average recovery timeline for returning to sport, it's a week. As Shams Charania notes, Steph hasn't dealt with this before either. So they got to see how his body responds to all of this and how his body can adapt and ultimately recover from this injury. However, some good news, Warriors fans, some good news here. From the Golden State side of things, Steph Curry obviously is important to the Golden State Warriors. He matters out there. He's going to be. He's the greatest shooter of all time, one of the greatest players of all time. And you look and see what happens to the Golden State Warriors when Steph Curry is off the court. Well, we check over here at Cleaning the Glass, and not as bad as it could be. Not as bad. Minus 1.4 per 100 possessions without Steph Curry. That's not bad, all things considered. That's not bad. Minus 1.4 per 100 possessions without Steph Curry. This is where, if you're Golden State, you're saying, thank God we traded for Jimmy Butler. Why? Check this out. The whole point of trading, or part of the point of trading for Jimmy Butler, is we can sustain ourselves when Steph is out. Look at that. It's a small sample size, but plus 12.8 when Jimmy Butler is on the court and Steph Curry is not. Now, most of the time, that's for a smaller sample size, right? That's a shorter segment of the game. And I would imagine in most of those scenarios, the Warriors are going up against the other team's bench players. I think that matters in situations like that. Steph Curry is out, and so Jimmy Butler's in, helping to run things out there. With Curry out, you're probably talking about going up against the opposing team's benches as opposed to their starters. So I do think that these numbers can be skewed a little bit there in the Warriors' favor. But nonetheless, the bottom line is that the Warriors have still been very, very, very good if Jimmy Butler's on the court, even without Steph Curry. I mean, look at that lineup with Moody, Butler, Draymond, Post, and Podziemski. That lineup plus 16. Again, 248 possessions is not a ton, but still, that's some positive lineup data for the Golden State Warriors to suggest that, you know what, maybe they're not just dead in the water without Steph Curry. I still don't think they win the series without Steph, because I do think going up against the Wolves starters without Curry is going to be a problem. And there may be some time where the Wolves have to adjust to what the Warriors offense is going to shift to. How they're going to run things may be different. Again, we saw it in game 1. The Warriors were without Steph in the game. Draymond got hot from 3, and you just never know what's going to happen in an NBA game. Draymond was 40% from 3. Buddy Hield got going. Buddy Hield could be a huge X factor as well. Hield, 5 of 8 from deep. You get a couple of guys that get hot for a game or two, and next thing you know, you're going to end up picking up wins, even though Steph Curry's not there. So I wouldn't say that the Warriors are just done, that they're dead in the water, that there's no chance for them to win. Again, they won last night without Steph Curry, but it took, again, a pretty impressive shooting performance from Buddy Hield. He's done it before. He did it last series. A pretty impressive shooting performance from Draymond Green. I don't know how likely it is that he's going to replicate that game after game, but they shot 43% from 3, 39% from the field, but grabbed a whopping 18 offensive rebounds. And meanwhile, the Wolves shot 17% from 3 in the game to ultimately lose this one. So I do think the Warriors are in trouble here. I think they're in trouble, but I will say that's not a impossibility for the Warriors to hang in there without Steph and find a way to still win the series. But this is a big, big blow. This changes so much about the Warriors and what they do. It's going to be a problem for Golden State that they're going to have to find a way to manage if they want to survive this series. So Steph Curry out, probably looking at a week, maybe all the way to game 6 of the series, depending on how the injury is recovering with this grade 1 hamstring strain. But everybody, give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel as well. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.